Imagine waking up one day, not to the sound of an alarm or the warmth of sunlight creeping through your window, but to the haunting realization that everything around you, the world you believe to be solid, fixed, and unchanging, is nothing more than an illusion. The people, the places, the very thoughts in your mind, they aren't what they seem. You've been trapped in a web of invisible forces, each one more subtle than the last, but equally powerful, shaping your every move, thought, and decision. At first, it's disorienting. The objects in your room, the routine you follow, the relationships you've carefully constructed, they all begin to feel flimsy. They blur at the edges. Your perception shifts, and a profound question arises: what if everything I think I know about my reality is being manipulated by forces I can't see, or worse, by forces I don't even understand? This is not some far-off philosophical musing or a vague, intellectual curiosity. It is the very foundation of your experience, hidden, pervasive, and deeply unsettling. Yet, in all your life, you've never been taught to question it. You've been taught to accept it. This question, this crisis of perception, has always been right in front of you, but it lurked in the background, ignored or dismissed, until now. And as you confront this question, another one inevitably follows: if I can't trust the world around me, who can I trust? This feeling, the suspicion that reality might not be what it appears, isn't new. Philosophers and psychologists have pondered this for centuries. Nietzsche spoke of the will to power, the invisible forces that shape our desires and motivations, hidden under layers of social conditioning. Jung explored the concept of the shadow, those parts of the psyche that we refuse to acknowledge, yet they shape our actions in ways we can't comprehend. Sartre questioned the very nature of freedom, arguing that our perception of choice is often constrained by social forces and existential anxiety. But what these thinkers couldn't tell us is how to escape. They couldn't fully describe the invisible puppeteers that pull our strings, because, at the time, they didn't have the tools we do now. In today's world, we are surrounded by a barrage of influences, media, culture, politics, economics, that feed into our subconscious minds, shaping us before we even realize it. The most insidious part is that these forces don't just affect our behavior. They affect our very perception of reality. They convince us that what we see and feel is real, when it is, in fact, heavily curated, influenced, and manipulated. You think you're making choices, but are you really? Or have you been subtly steered down a path that someone else paved for you? Now, you may think, but this is just paranoia. It's impossible for me to not be in control of my own life. And yet, if you look deeper at the patterns of your thoughts, your habits, the way you react to certain stimuli, the way you judge others, you'll start to see the hidden hand that shapes them. It's not just advertisers selling you products, or politicians telling you how to think. It's a much deeper, more psychological influence that works from within your own mind. The media you consume, the values you hold, the very way you see the world, these are not just reflections of reality. They are constructed images, carefully curated and deeply ingrained, and they create a reality that is not your own. But here's the paradox: you don't even know it's happening. You believe that the thoughts you have are truly yours. The desires you feel, the choices you make, they seem entirely of your own doing. But what if the reality you see, the decisions you make, and the desires you chase are just the surface-level products of forces so deeply embedded within your psyche and society that you cannot even recognize their influence? What if the seemingly independent self that you pride yourself on is merely a puppet, and the strings are being pulled by unseen forces you cannot fathom? What if you are, in fact, living in a reality that isn't yours? This is the great question. One that we all must confront. How do you break free from the hidden forces shaping your world? How do you step outside of the illusion, the construct, and see things as they really are? To explore this, we must first understand how these forces took hold. Where did they come from? Why have we accepted them without question? And, more importantly, how can we begin to peel back the layers, to uncover the unseen hands that have been shaping us all along? Because if we can understand them, we might just find a way to escape the reality they've woven around us. And so, the journey begins. The journey to uncover the invisible forces that shape your reality. The path to awakening. Now that you've begun to glimpse the unsettling truth that your reality is not as real as you thought, let's dive deeper. How did we arrive at this point? How did these unseen forces take hold of you without your consent, and why have you allowed them to shape your world for so long? To answer this, we must turn to the roots of human nature itself. We must trace the hidden currents of psychology, philosophy, and societal forces that have been at work for centuries, shaping not only you, but all of humanity. The deeper we go, the more uncomfortable the answers become. At the heart of this issue lies a paradox. The more aware we are of our own consciousness, the more susceptible we become to the influences that shape it. As Carl Jung warned, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming who we truly are is far from a simple task. Our perception of ourselves is clouded by layers of unconscious influence, our personal history, our cultural conditioning, and the psychological mechanisms that shape how we see the world. These forces work beneath the surface, often so subtly that we fail to notice their power. Take a moment and think about your own life. How much of your identity, the way you dress, the music you listen to, the people you surround yourself with, was influenced by your upbringing, the culture you grew up in, or the ideals you were taught to value? These are not just surface-level choices. They are echoes of the hidden forces that have shaped your desires, your choices, your very worldview. To truly understand the forces shaping your reality, you must confront the fact that you were never fully in control of these decisions. Jung's concept of the shadow offers a powerful insight here. The shadow is the unconscious part of the psyche, where we repress all the qualities we don't want to admit to ourselves, our weaknesses, our desires, our fears. Jung believed that the shadow doesn't just exist as a dark, hidden part of us, it actively shapes our behavior and influences our thoughts in ways we often can't recognize. It's the part of you that is afraid to face the truth, the part that hides behind a mask of societal expectation. If you continue to ignore the shadow, it will continue to dictate your actions, even though you're unaware of it. This process is not limited to individual psychology. Society at large operates under similar unconscious drives. Nietzsche spoke of the herd mentality, the way individuals unconsciously follow the collective values and norms without ever questioning them. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe, he wrote. The problem, however, is that most of us don't even realize that we're following the herd. The individual is constantly being shaped by social pressures to conform, to belong, to be accepted by others. These social forces are powerful because they feel natural. They seem as if they are part of the fabric of life itself. But what happens when you start to question those forces? What happens when you step outside the herd and ask yourself why you think the way you do? Nietzsche believed that those who dared to question the norms of society were the ones who truly became themselves, those who created new values, rather than accepting those handed down by others. Become who you are, he urged, but the path to becoming yourself is not an easy one. It's a path that leads through discomfort, doubt, and the courage to stand apart from the collective. The influence of society on our individual psyches is not merely a philosophical concept. It has real, tangible effects on our behavior and the way we experience reality. From a psychological standpoint, this influence is largely driven by the principle of social learning. Psychologists like Albert Bandura have demonstrated that much of our behavior is learned through observation and imitation. We watch how others behave, and we model our actions after theirs, whether we realize it or not. This is why advertising works so effectively. Brands don't just sell products, they sell lifestyles, values, and identities. They create a reality that becomes so embedded in your mind that you begin to accept it as your own. This idea has been further explored by thinkers like Aldous Huxley, who warned in Brave New World of a society in which individuals are manipulated not through overt oppression, but through the subtle forces of pleasure and comfort. In his dystopian vision, people are not coerced into conformity, instead, they are conditioned to desire it. They are given instant gratification, entertainment, and a sense of belonging, all of which create a passive acceptance of the status quo. Huxley's insight resonates today more than ever, as we live in a world of constant media consumption, where our attention is constantly pulled toward superficial distractions that keep us from asking the deeper, more uncomfortable questions about our lives. In the realm of existentialism, thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Viktor Frankl examined how the individual relates to the world and its constraints. Sartre's concept of bad faith describes the self-deception people engage in when they deny their own freedom and responsibility in favor of conforming to societal expectations. According to Sartre, people often deceive themselves into thinking they have no choice, that they are simply products of their environment, because it's easier than confronting the truth that they are free, and that freedom comes with the burden of responsibility. This avoidance of freedom, this refusal to confront the possibility of living authentically, is exactly what allows the unseen forces to take control. Similarly, Frankl, in his seminal work Man's Search for Meaning, highlighted the critical role that meaning plays in the human experience. He observed that people often seek external sources of meaning, jobs, relationships, possessions, because it's easier than confronting the existential void that lies at the heart of every individual. But when external sources of meaning are stripped away, as they often are in moments of crisis, what remains is the raw freedom to choose one's response to life. This freedom can be terrifying, but it is also the key to transcending the forces that shape our reality. What all of these thinkers have in common is the recognition that our perception of reality is not a neutral, objective process. Our minds are shaped by invisible forces, forces that come from our upbringing, our society, and our own unconscious minds. The uncomfortable truth is that most of what we experience as reality is not reality at all. It's a construct, a set of beliefs and influences imposed upon us from the outside and from within. And until we confront these influences, until we break free from the grip of the shadow, society, and our own self-deceptions, we will continue to live in a reality that is not our own. But understanding this is only the first step. The real challenge lies in asking the question, how do we begin to break free from these unseen forces? How do we reclaim control of our own minds and, by extension, our own reality? The answer lies in the courage to face the discomfort, the darkness, and the unknown forces that have shaped us. It requires the willingness to ask uncomfortable questions and the strength to stand against the tide of conformity. Only then can we begin to see the world for what it truly is, and ultimately, begin to shape our own reality. Once you begin to comprehend the nature of the invisible forces shaping your reality, it's time to examine how these forces, though imperceptible, have profound and far-reaching consequences. The effects of being subtly controlled, manipulated, and conditioned by societal and psychological forces are not isolated to a few moments of doubt or an occasional feeling of disorientation. These unseen forces work at the deepest levels of your mind and subtly shape your perceptions, relationships, and actions in ways you cannot even begin to grasp until you look closely. And it's not just an individual phenomenon, it's societal, collective, spanning across generations, cultures, and histories. To understand the consequences, we must first explore the cognitive biases and neurological mechanisms that operate beneath the surface of your awareness. These mental shortcuts, patterns of thinking ingrained so deeply in your psyche, serve as the groundwork for the unseen forces that shape your behavior and worldview. They distort reality in ways that make it almost impossible to see the truth. Take the confirmation bias as an example. This psychological phenomenon causes you to seek out information that aligns with your existing beliefs and dismiss information that challenges them. From the news you watch to the political ideologies you adopt, confirmation bias ensures that you're never truly exposed to new or divergent ideas. The world you perceive is filtered through the lens of your pre-existing assumptions, leaving you trapped in a bubble of your own making. This effect is magnified by social media, which thrives on reinforcing echo chambers and creating a feedback loop of validation. You follow those who share your views, engage with posts that reaffirm your beliefs, and disengage from anything that might challenge your carefully constructed identity. Over time, your perception of reality narrows, not because it's inherently limited, but because your mind has become conditioned to reject anything that doesn't fit the version of reality you've been trained to accept. There's also the phenomenon of the illusion of control. You believe you're in charge of your decisions, of your life, but in reality, you're not. The sense that we control our destiny is comforting, but it's an illusion. Research in cognitive psychology has demonstrated that people overestimate their ability to influence random events. From our jobs to our relationships, we think we're making choices that lead us toward fulfillment, but in many cases, we're simply following predetermined scripts, dictated by cultural norms, unconscious biases, and social expectations. As the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer observed, man can do what he wants, but he cannot want what he wants. Your desires are not yours. They have been shaped by unseen forces, by society, by upbringing, and by an almost invisible psychological conditioning that directs your actions from behind the scenes. Then, there's the paradox of choice, a phenomenon that has quietly emerged in the modern world, especially in consumer-driven societies. We're told that more choice means more freedom, more agency. But research has shown the opposite to be true. As the options multiply, we become more paralyzed and less satisfied. This paradox creates a reality where, despite being flooded with possibilities, we feel trapped in a constant state of indecision and dissatisfaction. The illusion of choice actually leads to deeper feelings of alienation and frustration because we are overwhelmed by the weight of options, all while remaining tethered to a system that makes us believe those choices matter. These cognitive biases and illusions are the psychological scaffolding that holds up the larger, more insidious structures of societal conditioning. But it's not just your mind that is shaped by unseen forces. The very way you interact with the world, your relationships, your ambitions, and your understanding of success are products of these hidden influences. Consider your relationships, for example. From a young age, you are conditioned to seek validation from others. You are taught to measure your worth by external markers: how many friends you have, how much you earn, how many followers you have on social media. These external validations become so deeply ingrained that they distort your sense of self-worth. You begin to see yourself through the lens of others' perceptions, not as an autonomous individual, but as a reflection of what society deems valuable. Nietzsche called this the slave morality, a set of values imposed by the weak upon the strong, in which individual greatness is suppressed in favor of conformity, self-denial, and obedience to societal rules. This morality, he argued, serves the interests of those who cannot achieve greatness on their own, and in doing so, it enslaves those who would dare to live authentically. The consequence is that individuals begin to measure their worth according to external standards, abandoning their own desires and needs in favor of a life lived according to societal expectations. This impact is not confined to personal relationships, it seeps into the very fabric of your social life. The illusion of a successful life is often defined by what you own, what you achieve, and how you are perceived by others. We are constantly told that success is a linear path: get the right job, make enough money, have the right relationships, and you will have lived a life worth living. But as you begin to step back and critically examine this blueprint for happiness, you realize that it's an illusion. Success, when defined by external markers, is a game you will never truly win. Every achievement simply brings a new goal to strive toward, and the elusive nature of fulfillment keeps you constantly chasing something you can never fully grasp. This cycle is perpetuated by the very institutions you rely on for meaning and stability: education, work, and even government. These institutions reinforce the narrative that happiness and fulfillment lie in external achievements and conformity to societal norms. But, as thinkers like Huxley warned, these institutions are not inherently interested in your well-being, they're interested in perpetuating the status quo. They teach you to conform, to accept the world as it is, and to believe that your happiness lies in fulfilling predefined roles. But in doing so, they suppress your individuality, your creativity, and your ability to think critically. You are a cog in the machine, and the more you buy into the system, the less you recognize your own autonomy. And then there's the hidden influence of your own brain. Neurological research has shown that your brain is wired to prefer the familiar over the unfamiliar. The brain's default mode network perpetuates patterns of thinking that feel safe, even if they are ultimately unproductive. It's much easier to fall into familiar thought patterns, biases, and habits than to break free from them and seek out new perspectives. This neurological wiring creates a kind of mental inertia that keeps you locked in old patterns, unable to see the reality that lies just outside your habitual way of thinking. The implications of all this are staggering. You are not living in a reality that you've fully created or chosen. Rather, You are living in a reality that has been shaped by invisible forces, forces you didn't ask for, but forces that have nevertheless been molding your perceptions, behaviors, and beliefs for years. These influences are so deeply embedded in your psyche and so subtly ingrained in your society that they feel normal. They feel natural. But they are not. They are the products of centuries of cultural conditioning, psychological manipulation, and unconscious forces. The consequences of this are profound. The first step in waking up from this reality is acknowledging its existence. The forces that shape your reality are not abstract. They are not out there somewhere in the ether. They are inside you. They are the thoughts you think, the judgments you make, the choices you avoid, and the desires you chase. They are in every moment of your day, shaping your perception of yourself, others, and the world around you. Once you begin to see these forces for what they are, you can begin the process of reclaiming your autonomy. But that path is not easy. It requires courage. It requires the willingness to look beyond the illusion and face the uncomfortable truth about who you are and who you've been made to be. This is where the real transformation begins. But before you can break free, you must understand how these unseen forces have shaped not only you, but society as a whole. The consequences are not just personal, they are collective, systemic, and they affect us all in ways we often fail to notice. Now, we turn to the next crucial question: how do we escape this cycle? How do we begin to break free? The journey to reclaim your reality begins with one simple, but profound realization: you are not your thoughts. The moment you start questioning the invisible forces that have shaped your life, you step onto a path of rebellion. This rebellion is not an outward fight against external institutions or societal structures, though that may play a part. The true rebellion is internal, against the unseen forces in your mind, against the mental conditioning that has shaped your perception of the world, and against the limitations placed on your freedom by both the collective and your own psyche. To break free, you must first understand the radical shift in perspective required to transcend the forces that bind you. There is a path, but it's not easy. It demands courage to face the dark corners of your mind, the places where your deepest fears, desires, and unresolved conflicts reside. It requires you to challenge not only the society around you but also the story you've been telling yourself for years. It's a path that leads you through the uncomfortable process of self-confrontation, self-awareness, and eventually, self-transformation. But this is not a new idea. The act of breaking free from unseen forces has been at the core of human philosophy for centuries. The ancient Greek concept of nothaisoten, know thyself, was a call to look beyond the surface of life and understand the true forces at work within the human soul. Socrates, in his relentless pursuit of truth, urged his followers to challenge their assumptions and beliefs, to break free from the comfortable lies they told themselves, and to confront their ignorance. The journey towards self-knowledge is not a path to certainty or comfort, it's a path to freedom. This pursuit of self-knowledge is also central to the work of Carl Jung. For Jung, the key to true freedom lay in the integration of the shadow. Your shadow represents the parts of yourself that you have repressed, the aspects of your character, desires, and experiences that you don't want to confront. These repressed parts don't just vanish. Instead, they act in the background, silently shaping your actions, fears, and even your interactions with others. The rebellion against the unseen forces starts with acknowledging your shadow and bringing it into the light. It's a deeply uncomfortable process, because it requires you to face parts of yourself that you would rather not see. But it is only by integrating these parts of yourself that you can truly become whole, and thus free. Nietzsche's call for the Übermensch, the Overman or Superman, speaks to the radical transformation of the self. Nietzsche believed that the masses, the herd, were enslaved to societal values and norms that stifled their individuality and creativity. The Übermensch was the one who dared to break free from these chains, to create new values, and to live authentically, regardless of the consequences. This is the ultimate rebellion, to reject the societal narratives that define success, happiness, and identity, and to instead forge your own path, one that is aligned with your deepest, truest nature. But what does this rebellion look like in practical terms? How do you begin to break free from these unseen forces that dominate your life? The first step is awareness. The path to freedom begins with the willingness to see things as they truly are. This requires you to examine the stories you tell yourself, the beliefs you hold about the world, and the patterns of thought that guide your life. Ask yourself, what am I afraid to confront? What parts of myself do I keep hidden? What beliefs am I holding onto simply because they are comfortable or familiar? This awareness is not a passive act. It demands active reflection and brutal honesty. You must question everything: your motivations, your desires, your values. The second step is radical responsibility. This means accepting full ownership over your thoughts, actions, and decisions. The truth is, as Viktor Frankl argued in Man's Search for Meaning, while you cannot always control your circumstances, you always have the power to choose your response. The moment you recognize the forces shaping your life, you must stop blaming others, society, your upbringing, your environment, and take responsibility for how you respond to those forces. This is not about becoming passive or resigned. It's about recognizing that, despite the many forces working against you, you still have the power to choose how you react to them. And in that choice lies your freedom. Breaking free also requires a radical rejection of societal norms and external validation. For most of your life, you've been told that success is defined by how much money you make, how many people like you, or how much you conform to societal expectations. But this is a lie. True success is not measured by external validation but by internal alignment with your deepest values. Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch is a rejection of the herd mentality, of accepting the values imposed upon you by others. Instead, you must create your own values, values that are not dictated by society but by your own soul. This is a terrifying, but profoundly liberating act. It means saying goodbye to the life you thought you should live, and stepping into the unknown. An important aspect of breaking free is the practice of mindfulness, not just in the sense of meditation, but in every aspect of your life. Mindfulness allows you to become acutely aware of the thoughts and emotions that arise in you throughout the day, giving you the power to interrupt automatic, conditioned responses. When you are mindful, you become aware of how your mind has been influenced by external forces, how the media, your culture, and even your personal history are shaping your reactions and decisions. Mindfulness gives you the ability to step back from your thoughts and observe them from a place of detachment. In this space of awareness, you can make conscious choices rather than reacting automatically to the world around you. But breaking free is not just about shedding external influences. It's about transcending the limitations of your own mind. The rebellious act of transcending your old self is illustrated most clearly in the philosophical concept of becoming. Becoming is not a goal to be achieved, but a continuous process of transformation. It requires letting go of the fixed, rigid idea of who you are and embracing the fluid, dynamic nature of your existence. In this process, you break free from the chains of identity, from the fear of change, and from the need for certainty. You become something greater, something more authentic. This is the essence of the Übermensch, the self that creates its own reality, unburdened by societal expectations or psychological limitations. Finally, the rebellion against unseen forces requires a radical embrace of freedom, freedom not only from external influences but from the unconscious forces within you. This is the key insight of existential thinkers like Sartre and Frankl. Freedom is both terrifying and empowering. It is the recognition that, despite the chaos and uncertainty of life, you are free to choose how you experience the world. This freedom, however, is not a guarantee of ease or happiness. It is a responsibility. The rebellion against unseen forces is not a one-time act but an ongoing practice of choosing to live authentically in the face of discomfort, chaos, and uncertainty. The path to freedom requires you to let go of certainty and control. It demands that you face your fears, your darkness, and the parts of yourself you would rather ignore. It challenges you to question the beliefs that have shaped your identity and to create new values that are true to your deepest self. It is a rebellion that begins in the mind and extends outward into the world. But in this rebellion, there is a promise, the promise of transformation. When you choose to break free, when you embrace the discomfort of uncertainty and the unknown, you unlock the possibility of a new reality, a reality that is uniquely your own. This is the rebellion. It's not about fighting the world, it's about fighting the invisible forces within yourself. It's about finding the courage to live authentically, to create your own path, and to embrace the full weight of your freedom. So now, the question stands before you: will you answer the call? Will you rebel against the forces that have shaped your life and take ownership of your reality? The choice is yours. And now we arrive at the final and most profound realization, the ultimate truth about reality, about yourself, and about the forces that have shaped your existence. This truth will not be easy to swallow, but it is necessary for true liberation. It is the truth that holds the key to the highest form of freedom, the kind of freedom that transcends external circumstances, psychological constraints, and societal pressures. The ultimate truth is this: there is no ultimate truth. You've spent your entire life seeking it, haven't you? The answers to your deepest questions. The solutions to your struggles. The blueprint for a perfect life. But the reality is, there is no single, objective truth that governs the world in a neat, easily understandable package. The truth you've been seeking, whether through philosophy, religion, self-help, or science, is elusive, because it is not something that can be found outside of yourself. The truth, as it exists in the external world, is constantly shifting, evolving, and subjective. What you perceive as real, what you understand as true, is a construct, shaped by your personal history, your society, and your unconscious mind. This is not nihilism, this is liberation. The absence of a single, rigid truth does not mean everything is meaningless. It means that you have the power to create your own truth. The freedom you seek does not lie in discovering the one true answer to the meaning of life. It lies in recognizing that you are the one who defines your reality. You are the one who gives meaning to your life, not through the dictates of external forces, but through your own conscious choices. In this sense, the truth is paradoxical. It is both liberating and terrifying. It means that you are no longer bound by the stories others have told you about who you are and what you should do. You are free to craft your own narrative, to shape your reality as you see fit, to create a life that is true to your deepest self. But it also means that you must confront the terrifying void that comes with ultimate freedom, the responsibility for your own existence. When Nietzsche declared that God is dead, he was not simply making a theological statement. He was pointing to the collapse of the old systems of meaning and morality. In a world where there is no single, universally accepted truth, you are left with a profound sense of responsibility, the responsibility to create meaning in your life, not through submission to external authority, but through your own decisions, actions, and beliefs. This is the burden of freedom, but it is also its gift. The truth is, you are the creator of your reality. Every belief you hold, every choice you make, every desire you chase, they are all part of the story you are writing. And while the forces around you may try to influence your narrative, they cannot write it for you. The power to shape your life lies within you, in the choices you make each day, in the ways you confront your fears, in the ways you decide to live authentically. This is what Schopenhauer meant when he spoke of the will to live. For him, the driving force behind all human behavior was an unconscious, insatiable will, a force that pushed us to strive, to create, and to become. But in a world where the will is no longer controlled by external systems or societal forces, you must learn to master the will rather than be enslaved by it. You must come to terms with the fact that the will is not something you can suppress or eliminate. It is a force that exists within you, and the key to freedom is learning how to direct it consciously, to use it in service of your highest ideals. This ultimate truth is also central to the existential insights of thinkers like Sartre. For Sartre, existence precedes essence. This means that you are not born with a predefined purpose or identity, you are born with the freedom to create your own meaning. There is no true self waiting to be discovered. The self is created through the choices you make, through the actions you take, and through the responsibility you accept for your life. This is the profound insight of Viktor Frankl as well, who found meaning even in the most horrific circumstances of his concentration camp experiences. He realized that the ultimate freedom lies in the ability to choose how you respond to life's challenges. Everything can be taken from a man, Frankl wrote, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Asterisk this, ultimately, is the truth you must confront. In every moment, you have the power to choose. Not just your actions, but your attitude, your perspective, your meaning. As you begin to embrace this truth, you will inevitably face resistance from society, from your own mind, and from the world itself. The resistance comes from the fear of stepping into the unknown, of taking full responsibility for your own existence. But it is only in embracing this uncertainty that you can truly experience the depth of your freedom. As Kierkegaard once wrote, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. This is the final key to breaking free, embracing uncertainty. The more you try to cling to certainty, to the illusion of control, the more you limit your potential. The truth, the real truth, is that there is no ultimate answer to life's questions, no permanent truth that can be grasped once and for all. Instead, life is an unfolding process, a constant becoming, an ongoing journey. To live fully is to embrace this flux. To live authentically is to navigate the ebb and flow of life with open eyes, accepting the paradoxes, the contradictions, and the tensions that exist within yourself and the world around you. It is to create meaning out of the chaos, to find purpose in the uncertainty, and to shape your reality with the raw material of your freedom. And so, we return to the central question: how will you shape your reality? The forces that have controlled you up until now may still attempt to steer you in one direction or another. But in recognizing them for what they are, in understanding that they have no power over you unless you allow it, you gain the ultimate freedom, the freedom to live authentically, to create your own path, to transcend the illusion of fixed reality, and to become the architect of your life. In the end, the most profound realization is not a grand, ultimate truth that exists outside of yourself. It is the recognition that you are the truth. You are the one who creates meaning, who shapes the world, and who defines the path ahead. And in this truth lies the greatest freedom of all, the freedom to be yourself, unbounded and unshackled by the forces that once held you captive. As you take your next breath, remember this, you are not a product of your past. You are the creator of your future, and with that power comes a responsibility to create a reality that is truly yours, one moment at a time. The rebellion is complete. The illusion is shattered. And the life you choose to create begins now.